Hello friends, this is Siddharth's Literature House. Today's topic is important MCQs questions of poetry for exams of NTA, UGC, NET, SET, English literatures here. Let's start important MCQs of poetry sections here. Let's start today's topic here. The first question, what was the name of the poet who created the term metaphysical poets? The phrase metaphysical poets coined by whom? Options are A. John Dryden, options B. Samuel Johnson, option C. John Donne, or option D. Andrew Marvell. The best options here is that option B. Samuel Johnson, who coined the term metaphysical poets. Let's see another question here. Question number second. Which of the following is wrong about metaphysical poets? Which of the following is wrong about metaphysical poets? Among these options, one of them is wrong for concerning metaphysical poets here. Let's see what is maybe. Options A, they were lyric poets. Option B, they belong to the 17th century. Option C, the term was coined by Dr. Johnson. They wrote, options D, they wrote basically about nature. Here, option A, they were lyric poet. That is correct options. That is related term for metaphysical. Options B, they belong to the 17th century. It's right. Metaphysical poets were belong to the 17th centuries here. Option C, the term was coined by Dr. Samuel Johnson. It's also right. But the option D, they wrote basically about nature. That is the wrong options here. That is the wrong options given here. Option second. Question second is, which of the following is wrong about metaphysical poets? Option D is wrong option here. They wrote basically about nature. Question third here. In work did Samuel Johnson use the term metaphysical poets? Among these options, in which sections Dr. Samuel Johnson used the term metaphysical poets? Let's see which type of option here. Option A, lives of the most eminent English poets. Option B, the Patriot. Option C, the plan for a dictionary of the English language. Option D, the literary magazine. Samuel Johnson used the term metaphysical poets here among one of his works. What type of his work where he used such term here? Option A, lives of the most eminent English poets. That is correct option here, option A, where Samuel Johnson used such term metaphysical poets here. Option A, lives of the most eminent English poets. Let's see another question. Question number 4. Poet was the chapter. Poet was the chapter of lives of the most eminent English poets created on in which the term metaphysical poets was used by Samuel Johnson. For whom Samuel Johnson used the term metaphysical poets here? In his work Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets, created on in which the term metaphysical poets used by Dr. Samuel Johnson. Let's see. Options A, Abraham Coyle. Options B, John Donne. Option C, Andrew Marvell. Options D, Henry Vega. Dr. Samuel Johnson used the term metaphysical poet in his works Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets, created on, in which the term he used here for option A, Abraham Cole. That is the correct answer here for Abraham Cole poet. Abraham Cole poet was the chapter of Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets here. Question 5th is, from the following poets said about John Donne, he affects the metaphysics not only in his stares, but in his amorous verses where nature only should reign. Who said about John Donne, who uses these lines for John Donne? Options are Samuel Johnson, option B, John Dryden, option C, Andrew Marvell, and option D, Henry Vega. John Dryden said, option B is the correct answer here. John Dryden said about John Donne, he affects the metaphysics not only in his stares, but in his amorous verses where nature only should reign. Very famous line about John Donne said by John Dryden here. Question 6 here. How is Drummond of Havant associated with metaphysical poets? Drummond is also associated with metaphysical poets group here. How? Options are, he was the first poet to be identified as a metaphysical poet. Options B, he is considered responsible for introducing metaphysical element to prayers. Option C, he is considered to be the only writer before Dryden to speak of metaphysical poets. Options D, he was a critic who strongly disliked metaphysical poetry. Let's see again. These options are the poet Drummond of Havant associated with metaphysical poets. Here, how he is associated here? He was the first poet to be identified as a metaphysical poet. That option is not correct options here. Another option, he is considered responsible for introducing metaphysical elements to prayers. This option is also wrong here. Next, he is considered to be the only writer before Dryden to speak of metaphysical poets. That is the best options here. Drummond is considered to be the only writer before Dryden, before the age of Dryden, to speak of metaphysical poets here. Option C is the best options here. Question 7. Among of these options, which term is related to metaphysical poetry that proposes the tendency of these poets to display their learning in poetry? Metaphysical poetry is dependent on the following one of the term. What is that? For the poets who displayed their learning in poetry here. Let's see. What are these options here? Options A, conceit. Options B, discordia concourse. Option C, wit. And option D, metaphysical with the word also. Which term is related to metaphysical poetry that proposes the tendency of these poets to display their learning in poetry? The following phrases, one of them is correct here. What is that? Let's see. Conceit is not correct answer here. Discordia conquers, also wrong answer here. Option C, wit, is the best options here. Wit term is related to metaphysical poetry that proposes the tendency of these poets to display their learning in poetry. Metaphysical poets use wit for learning in such poetry in the term of metaphysical here. Let's see another question. Question number 8. What does it say? Let's see. Poets associated Saul with a drop of dew in one of his poems. Among these poets, one of them is associated Saul with a drop of dew in one of his poems. Who is that? Who's that poet is associated? One of his poems. Let's see. Options are, first option is John Donne, second option is Andrew Marvell, third option is Abraham Cowley, and fourth option is Henry Wegum. One of them is associated Saul with a drop of dew in one of his poems. That is the correct answer here. Option B, Andrew Marvell is associated Saul with a drop of dew in one of his poems. Very famous poet here. Next question is number 9. Who compared two legs of the compass to two lovers in one of his poems? Among these poets, one of them is used such terms in his love poems. That poet is also a love poet related metaphysical term here. Let's see who is that. John Donne, Andrew Marvell, Abraham Cowley, Henry Wegum. Compare two legs of the compass of two lovers in one of his poems. That poet is options A. That poet is option A. John Donne is correct answer here. Next question is, which of the following metaphysical poets married Anne More? Andrew Marvell, Abraham Cowley, Henry Wegum, John Donne. John Donne loves Anne More, so John Donne married Anne More. John Donne loves Anne More. In question 13, in Donne's The Indifferent, which is the only quality that the narrator dislikes in a woman? Dishonesty, truthfulness, generosity, unkindness. In Donne's The Indifferent, which is the only quality that the narrator dislikes in a woman, that is option B, truthfulness. Next question. Question number 14. In Donne's The Appreciations, which of the following? Question 15th is, what is a poem called whose first letters of each line spell out of a word? That poem may be called alliterative, epic, acrostic, haiku. That poem whose first letters of each line spell out a word is called, option C is the correct answer here. Option C is the correct answer. Whose first letters of each line spell out a word, that is called acrostic, is that poem. Question number 16. Let's see. What is a funny poem of 5 lines called here? Quartet, limerick, sextet, palindrome. What type of poem which has a funny poem of 5 lines called is that? What is the particular name of that poem? Let's see. Options B is the correct answer here. Limerick is a funny poem who of 5 lines called. Limerick is that structure of the poem which has 5 lines here. Next question is number 17th. Which of the following is not an English poet? Among of these is not related from England. Who is that? Options are Victor Hugo, Alexander Pope, option C John Milton, option D Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Who is not belonged from England? Who is that? Let's see. Option A is the correct answer here. Victor Hugo is not belonged from England here. Next question, number 18th here. Who was often called as the romantic poet, as most of his poems revolved around nature. That poet is also called the naturalistic poet. Among of these, one of that who is called the romantic poet, as most of his poems revolved around nature, whose poems themes related to nature. Who's that? Options are William Blake, options B William Shakespeare, option C William Morris, options D William Wordsworth. Who's that? Options D is correct options here. William Wordsworth is that poet whose poems revolved around nature, whose theme of poems belong to nature here. Let's see another question. Question number 19. Let's see. Question 19th here. How did W.S. Donne describe poetry? Donne describe poetry in what manner? Let's see. Options are an awful way to earn a living, a game of knowledge, the soul exposed, an explosion of language. Donne recommended poetry is belong to in option B, a game of knowledge. He said poetry belongs to a game of knowledge by W.H. Donne. Let's see another question here. Question number 20th. Sassoon and Brooke wrote what kind of poetry? Sassoon and Brooke wrote what kind of poetry? Let's see. Light verse, romantic, political stare, war poem. Sassoon and Brooke, very famous poet who wrote, their theme was, that is option D, war poems. D is the best answer here for the answer question 20th here. Sassoon and Brooke wrote war poems here. Let's see another question. Question number 21st. Where did T.S. Eliot spend most of his childhood? Denver, St. Louis, Cuba, Toronto. T.S. Eliot's, this question is belong from T.S. Eliot's life history here. Options B is correct answer. Let's see. Option B is correct answer here. St. Louis. T.S. Eliot spent most of his childhood. Next question is 22nd question. Ted Hughes was married to which American poetess? Options are Caroline Kiza, Mary Oliver, Sylvia Plath, Marine Moore. Ted Hughes married to Sylvia Plath. Option C is correct answer here. Next question. Question number 23rd. How old was Rupert Brooke at the time of his death? Options D is correct options here. At the age of 28, he died. Question number 24th here. Who wrote the poem Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S? That is Indian poet related. Who is that? Let's see. Who wrote Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S? Options are here. Kamla Suraya. Options B Nizam Ezekiel. Option C Maya Angelou. Options D Gabriel Akra. The correct option is here. Option B Nizam Ezekiel wrote Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. here. Next question is 25th question. The most personal of Keats' arts among of these options. What is that Keats' personal arts here? Let's see. The Eve of St. Agnes. Options B, Isabella. Option C, Ode of Not to Nightingale. Options D, La Belle Dame sans Merci. The correct answer here, option C is the correct answer. Ode to a Nightingale is very personal arts of Keats here. Next question, question number 26 here. Let's see. Whose poems are a fusion of pleasure and wisdom? Among of these greatest poet, who's related to pleasure and wisdom fusions here? Let's see. Whose poems are belong with the sense of pleasure and wisdom here? Who is that? Options are Shakespeare, Robert Frost, David Melkoff, Maya Angelou. The correct options is option B is the correct options here. Our Frost, whose poems belong to sense of pleasure and wisdom here. Dear friends, this is the first MCQ part of poetry sections for related to UGC, NTA, NET and SET English Literature examinations here. We will provide MCQs, questions continues for poetry sections here. Please continue watch and thank you very much for watching my YouTube channel.